Well, welcome, students. Gather around closely. Today, I am passing on a truly fascinating story to you, one that stretches all the way back to the dawn of human history, uncovering secrets buried beneath the sands of time. This story is derived entirely from a detailed presentation by Trace Smith, and remember, the link to his original source material is right below. Oh, and I see our little lamb has already taken a seat on the stool over there to listen with us. So let's dive right into this intricate tale of ancient legends, hidden symbols, and an unbroken timeline. I want to start our lesson today by posing a really grand question to you all. Did the ancient gods of Babylon and Egypt actually walk the earth before the Great Flood? You might be wondering why this matters. Well, because the source material presents a narrative where these mythical figures weren't just fictional tales. Instead, they were actual spiritual entities weaving dark influence through history, constantly changing their names and forms but keeping the exact same sinister motives. To grasp the true depth of this story, we first look to ancient Egypt. The 10 plagues described in Exodus weren't just random ecological disasters. Actually, every single plague specifically targeted and humiliated a different Egyptian deity. This cosmic confrontation culminated remarkably at the 9th plague. 9 represents an event just one step short of final completion. That 9th plague was a suffocating 3-day physical darkness, directly challenging and defeating Ra, the mighty sun god. His supreme light was completely snuffed out. Which brings us directly to the 10th plague and the introduction of a profoundly important symbol, the Tav. The Tav is the final letter of the ancient Hebrew alphabet. In its oldest pictographic form, it is drawn literally as a wooden cross. The word Tav actually means a sign or a mark. During the first Passover on the 14th of Nisan, the Hebrews were instructed to paint this exact mark, a cross, in lamb's blood over their doors for protection. Now I want you to follow how that visual language evolved, because it is absolutely crucial. The ancient Tav was a cross, representing a mark of protection. But as Hebrew modernized over the centuries, the physical shape of the letter transformed. It dramatically shifted from a cross into the shape of an open doorway or gateway. Think about that. The ancient symbol of salvation literally became a door that you must pass through to find safety. Inside this linguistic framework, we find another really vital piece, the letter Yod. The Yod is the Hebrew number 10, which is a number of divine completion. Visually, it is just a tiny mark dangling like a spark, representing a divine thought or the spirit of God himself. When you look at the modern Tav, that doorway shape, you will actually find the Yod nestled right inside it. It beautifully symbolizes God's spirit passing directly through the gateway of the cross. This ancient language continues to reveal incredible depths, students, because we also must look at the Vav. The Vav is the Hebrew number 6, known widely as the number of man. In ancient pictographs, it represents an iron nail. Ancient rabbis even believed the Vav physically connects heaven down to earth. Trace Smith points out a fascinating connection here. During the crucifixion, Jesus was held by 3 Vavs, 3 nails, 3 sixes, acting as the ultimate bridge connecting heaven and earth. So trace this unbroken timeline with me. On the 14th of Nisan, the Passover lamb's blood is painted as a cross in Egypt. Exactly 3 days later, the Red Sea parts, bringing new life. Fast forward nearly 1,400 years to the exact same day, the 14th of Nisan. The ultimate Passover lamb is crucified on a wooden cross. And exactly 3 days later, the resurrection occurs. Our little lamb is watching so intently because it's just an amazing sequence of events. To truly understand the dark entities challenging this timeline, we have to travel deeply into the past, back to the dawn of the post-flood world. We turn to ancient pagan tablets like the Sumerian King's List, which reads, "When the kingship was lowered from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu." Eridu is the ancient original location of the Tower of Babel. That is exactly where the dark kingship and rebellion of the newly washed world first began. According to Smith's story, both biblical texts and ancient pagan stones align on an incredible piece of history. Comparing Genesis directly to the Sumerian King's List reveals a stunning parallel. Genesis records 10 generations from Adam to Noah before the flood, an era with incredibly long lifespans. Simultaneously, the pagan records list 8 pre-flood kings ruling in Eridu who also lived for an absolutely enormous amount of time before the waters came. But after the flood, everything changed. Ancient pagan stones and artifacts revealed that the immense physical stature and vast lifespans of mankind were rapidly plummeting. Dr. Jack Quizazzo observed that these ancient skulls were bone-for-bone humans who were vastly bigger and took much longer to reach adulthood. Ancient men watched this extreme longevity slip away. Because of this, desperate kings sought to regain their lost immortality through some very dark, forbidden rituals. And what rare artifacts empowered these rituals? The story introduces the mystical garments of Eden. After the fall, God made garments of animal skins to cover Adam and Eve's shame. Are little lamb's ears perked up now? As we learn in this story, these physical artifacts were passed down and actually survived the Great Flood aboard the wooden ark with Noah. But these holy garments didn't stay safe for very long. Noah's rebellious son Ham coveted and stole them. He secretly passed them down his bloodline to his son Cush, who eventually handed them over to the Dark Lord Nimrod. When Nimrod put on these original garments, he falsely claimed them as a badge of divine authority. He used their ancient prestige to rally desperate people and boldly construct his rebellious empire at the Tower of Babel. Nimrod's empire established a powerful, unholy trinity that spread across the globe. This triad of sun, moon, and star became the absolute blueprint for ancient mythology. In Sumeria, you had Utu the sun god, Sin the moon god, and Inanna the star queen. This exact same system morphed directly into the Egyptian pantheon: Ra, Isis, and Horus. They are the exact same spiritual entities, students, just wearing entirely different cultural masks. Let's look closely at Utu, or Shamash, the originating sun god. Utu proudly claimed to be a holy chosen one who valiantly emerged from between two mountain peaks. But the story suggests he was intentionally holding back the secret, life-saving calendar of the agricultural seasons to subjugate the common man. He completely left the mountains where Noah's Ark landed to forge his own dictatorial empire down in the plains. Next is the moon god, known as Sin or Suin. He is the shadowy lord of dark wisdom, constantly pulling forbidden knowledge from the abyss to corrupt humanity. In their numerical system, Sin is perfectly represented by the number 30. He is often depicted in ancient carvings with a crescent moon resting heavily on his head, a sinister symbol of false illumination that has actually survived right up to this very day. The final piece of this trinity is Inanna, widely known as Ishtar. Revered as the queen of heaven, she was a highly dangerous seductress, often depicted with large wings. She represented the wandering stars, deliberately leading mankind to worship the creation rather than the creator. She was a winged siren, demanding absolute worship at the heart of Babylonian rituals. Honestly, that detail makes our little lamb huddle a bit closer in fear. Surrounding these ancient sun kings were the Apkallu. These were terrifying bird-headed sage conjurers and demonic chimera entities. Think of them as grotesque fusions of man, beast, and dark spirit. Acting as the premier witch doctors of ancient Sumer, they wore terrifying bird outfits to perform rituals. They successfully spread this nightmarish chimera imagery all across the globe, from the Middle East to India, China, and the Americas. You see, the spiritual paths of humanity diverged sharply, perfectly mirrored in their animal symbols. The dark Apkallu and the Egyptian god Ra utilized imagery of the raven and falcon, birds that wandered restlessly in darkness. But contrast that with the biblical narrative. Noah released a pure dove, which faithfully brought back an olive branch of hope, just exactly as the Holy Spirit later descended like a peaceful dove upon Jesus. Those numbers we discussed earlier weave right back into this story too. Remember the 9th plague of darkness? The number 9 in Hebrew is represented by the letter tet. In its modernized crowned form, the tet looks exactly like a woven basket. But it's a mystery basket. It could hold something profoundly good or something incredibly evil. You know, like a coiled, crowned serpent waiting in the shadows to strike. And that coiled serpent takes our story all the way back to the ultimate deceiver. Genesis 3:1 reminds us the serpent was more crafty than any wild animal. According to the source material, this entire narrative traces all pagan worship, the sun disks, moon crescents, and winged stars, straight back to the fallen cherub in Eden, the very entity who lost his divine light and offered humanity a completely false path to destruction. So, to summarize this incredible narrative, Trace Smith's story intricately connects historical dots across thousands of years, from the deceptive fallen angels of Genesis and the Tower of Babel all the way to the plagues of Egypt and the ultimate victory at Calvary. We are looking at a vast spiritual chessboard where the exact same dark entities have simply disguised themselves in different cultural masks to deceive mankind. Which leaves us, my students, with a deeply provocative thought to end our lesson today. As we look at the immense history we've covered, and as our little lamb listens closely, we have to ask ourselves, if the hidden symbols of the past weave an unbroken story into the present day, whose ancient mark are we following today? Are we passing safely through the doorway of grace, or blindly bowing to the ancient wandering stars? I want you to think on that until our next story.